It had been a long day. Thomas had gotten into trouble with a local constable about his lack of side plates and cow catchers. The Fat Controller tried to defend Thomas's case, but it was no use. The law is the law, and you can't change it. I'm sorry, Thomas, but I'm afraid we're gonna have to make you those cow catcher things. Who could have guessed what was about to be said would change everything? But sir, the other engines will laugh at me. They'll say I look like a—
Silence, you disrespectful engine, interrupted the constable. Like it or not, without those side plates, you are a danger to yourself and others.
I beg your pardon, good sir, but you do not speak to my engine that way. Now, Thomas, please report to the works. I'll have everything arranged by tomorrow. And with that, the Fat Controller walked away. The next day, the stout gentleman arrived at the works to see Thomas's new side plates. Thomas knew better than to complain to Sir Topham Hatt, but he still hated the new side plates. I'm never gonna hear the end of this, Thomas said under his breath. As Thomas predicted, many of the bigger engines made fun of his new side plates, especially James. Ah, what ugly objects! Thomas quickly lost patience. James, why are you red? Ha, because I'm a splendid engine, ready for anything. Oh, so that's why you carried bootlaces, to be ready for anything? Huh, wait, that's not what I— Oh, but what about the time that your brake box caught fire? I guess you weren't ready then. Good thing I was there to save you. Before James could respond, the guard blew his whistle, so he had to leave. Following that day, Thomas and James had the same argument at the junction every time they met. Until Thomas quickly responded with the breakdown train and rescued the red engine, just like he did the day he got his branch line. After that, James no longer made fun of Thomas for his side plates. Around the same time, the Fat Controller would purchase a new engine so that Percy could help Thomas on his branch line. This new engine was named Duck, and he would soon become the 7th engine to be owned by the Northwestern Railway. Thomas would continue to have a series of misadventures, like when he fell down a mine and Gordon had to save him. While Thomas was in disgrace, a newly loaned tank engine ran his branch line for a while. Her name was Rosie, and she took a liking to Thomas, much to his annoyance. She would later become the 8th engine on the Northwestern Railway. Sometime after regaining his branch line, Thomas accidentally crashed into the station master's house and had to be rescued by the newly purchased Scottish twins, Donald and Douglas. In addition to ruining their breakfasts, Thomas had ruined his right side plate and had to be sent for repairs. While Thomas was away, a new diesel rail car was brought to the railway to cover for him. She would later join the railway but would never receive a number. When Thomas returned, he learned about a new diesel shunter working at the Farquhar Quarry. Her name was Mavis. In addition to serving the quarry as their main shunter, she had been running Thomas's stone deliveries while he was gone. Thomas liked Mavis, even if she could be, let's say, full of her own ideas. The next year, Thomas traveled to London with the Fat Controller's other 7 famous engines. Many children were surprised to see Thomas with side plates. None of the books have ever depicted him with them, but Thomas would simply smile and explain the situation. Despite his original hesitations, Thomas eventually grew to appreciate his side plates. They made him safer, allowed him to go anywhere on his branch line, and he never had to wear a snowplow again. At the end of the day, Thomas was happy with them. Unfortunately, north of the island, there lived an old train that wasn't so happy. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Toby. I'm sorry to hear it's your last day. It's not your fault, sir. Well, you should probably head back to your shed. I don't know what comes next, old boy, but I promise you this. As your manager, I'll try my best to preserve you. Yes, sir, Toby said doubtfully. The next morning, as Toby awoke, he saw Henrietta on a flatbed. Sir, what's happening to Henrietta? I'm sorry, Toby. Sodor Tramways just sold her to the station master. She'll be turned into a hen house. You can't let this happen. I tried to tell them not to, Toby, but it's out of my control. All Toby could do was tear up as he saw his old, faithful coach being hauled away. Sodor Tramway tried to sell off Toby, but no one was interested in such an old relic. So, they decided to leave him there in his old shed. The manager said he would come back one day, purchase him, and restore him to his former glory, but he never returned for Toby. The old tram engine just sat there alone in his shed for years on end. He didn't say anything. He had no one to talk to and nothing to talk about. So he just stayed silent, in pure, deafening silence. Until one day. The next morning, the Fat Controller arrived in Harold the helicopter to inspect the damage. The engine, who went by Oliver, and his crew were perfectly fine, but they informed the Fat Controller that he should check behind the shed. The stout gentleman was confused, but decided to investigate before discovering the truth behind Oliver's find. You're the tram engine me and my grandchildren rode on all those years ago. Tobias, right? It's Toby, sir. Right. I'd like to apologize for the rude awakening. Oh, trust me, I'm happy to be out of that shed. Even if the next stop likely is the scrapyard. Or perhaps not. Sir Robert Normanby, what are you doing here? Oh, no need to be so formal, Topham. I just overheard the helicopter from Alstead Castle, and I'm glad I did, for this is a fine engine here. I would like to add him to my collection, if you don't mind. Well, Robert, I'd say that's up to Toby. The two men looked at the tram engine, and by the look on Toby's face, it was clear what his answer was going to be. Toby now works on the Heritage Line that is owned by Sir Robert Normanby. Many people come to take pictures of Toby, alongside the other engines like Stephenson's Rocket and Millie the Narrow Gauge engine. With his darkest days behind him, Toby, for the first time in a long time, was happy.